A big hello to all. I welcome you to today's webinar. I'm your moderator and host, Sona Suzanne, and I thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar, Bulletproof your QAD ERP to Cloud with Top 5 Implementations and Upgrade Best Practices, is presented by Sunil Kumar, who is the Director, Global Practice at JK Tech. Sunil is a seasoned IT leader with over 2 decades of experience in QAD enterprise software, application managed database administration, migration, upgrades, design and implementation, and consulting service. He has added value to several customers by providing QAD ERP specific enablers and consulting services for improving operational efficiency and user experience to clients across globe and complex market segments. He has helped customers accomplish the vision of being a robust, optimized, and intelligent enterprise. Sunil is also part of the JK Tech QAD Practice ERP Lab and works closely with vendor innovation teams to identify technology improvement areas to reduce the timeline and cost of QAD ERP upgrade and implementation. Today's webinar will focus on best practices, guidelines, and strategies that are required to implement a robust, rapid, and cost-effective QAD ERP cloud migration, upgrade, and implementation. At the end of the presentation, we will have the floor open for a Q&A session to clarify any doubt that you may have regarding the solution. So keep your questions ready and share them as soon as we open the Q&A session. Without further delay, I welcome Sunil to kickstart the webinar. Sunil, the floor is yours.
Hey, Sona, thank you for the introduction. And before I start, it's very important to, probably I welcome all of you and appreciate the time, that you've taken out to attend this webinar out of the production hours. Just to lay the background, the reason why we are giving this webinar is our marketing team, they met and spoke with IT leaders across various segments and, market leaders. And based on certain questionnaires, they got their feedback and we kind of consolidated their questions, their feedback, and kind of with everything that is currently available within the QAD ecosystem from the best practices. So we thought we'll consolidate all of the thought processes together and provide a holistic view of, how you can do an upgrade. Why do you actually need to have an upgrade? What is the ERP life cycle and the benefits of upgrades, the challenges that you have, and the effective methodologies that you can use so that you can have a rapid and a cost-effective upgrade. And by the virtue of having all of these tied up and kind of bolted together, you can bulletproof your ERP as well by choosing the right cloud infrastructure and the right cloud provider. And definitely QAD Cloud is one of the leading cloud providers as well. And we will talk in details why I'm kind of introducing QAD as the cloud solution and other cloud solutions as well, which QAD also endorses, and they're kind of working to ensure that they have the QAD ecosystem compatible with the other private clouds as well. This is not a marketing, this is not a kind of a sales pitch that we're trying to make, but we'll definitely give you a background on what JK Tech is, and as part of the QAD ecosystem. I touch base on the QAD ERP lifecycle, and I'll give you the significance and importance on why we need to understand that, why ERP upgrade, why cloud, and why adaptive ERP. All right, we'll also talk about the significance of understanding and prioritizing your key requirements when you choose an upgrade implementation or a migration roadmap. We'll also do a deep dive understanding of the methodologies. And by that, I'm referring to the implementation methodologies and the different methods in which you can do the upgrades as well. And some best practices around an emphasis around why you need to invest time in trainings and workshops, And last but not the least, the data migration aspect and significance of the data migration, and some general guidelines that you need to follow to ensure that you are up to date with the data integrity, and you plan out the data migration correctly, because that's also one of the key important areas. Now, just giving a background on JK Tech. JK Tech is a global system integrator of QAD as well, and we kind of created a partnership channel in April 2021 last year. But JK Tech, from a QAD practice perspective, we have been in the market, we have been in the industry for 25 plus years. In these 25 plus years, we have delivered 350 plus projects, and this includes from small scale projects to large scale projects, from a medium complexity to a larger complexity, small ecosystem to big ecosystem across the different market segments that we have. We have a total pool of 300 plus consultants, and it's a mix and match of QAD consultants and the progress consultants. Everybody who has joined the webinar today, and if you're from a QAD background, we all know the engine runs on progress anyway. So we do have a progress practice as well, but there is a very common integration between the resource pool that is being leveraged to work on QAD projects as well. Within these 300 consultants, we have a mix and match of functional, finance, business analysts, EDI, integration, developers, and across the different modules that you have, and also the add-on modules that QAD ecosystem also has. We also have resources who are well trained, certified, and spent from 5 years to 25 to 30 years in the QAD ecosystem. By the virtue of we having a partnership with QAD and also our in-house innovation lab, we have created around 10 plus IPs and accelerators that we kind of leverage during the implementation, upgrades, migration, and AMS services. In addition to the Center of Excellence, we have a highly skilled delivery team as well, with the certified project managers and delivery managers and delivery heads. So they have all worked from 5 years to 35 years in the ecosystem and the different market segments. By the virtue of we having, kind of 25 plus years of experience in the QAD ecosystem, delivered 350 plus projects, in-house homegrown solution that we have developed, and we are also in the process of developing more. We do provide 8 to 12% of productivity gains, either you're doing an implementation, upgrades, migration, or any AMS services for that matter. So we have these IPs and accelerators that we leverage to enhance your kind of experience and provide you a more artificial intelligent governance around your ecosystem. QAD ERP lifecycle. Now, before I talk about this, right? So we all know what an ERP lifecycle is, but it's very important to understand the terminologies that revolves around the ERP versions, and what do we mean by general availability? What do we mean by functionally stable, mature, and retired? So we have made an attempt to give a dump of all the existing QAD ERP versions that we have, starting from the older versions to the newer versions, which is Adaptive ERP. So anything that you see below to 2016 Enterprise Edition is all retired, right? So now I was emphasizing more on the general availability, functionally stable, and mature and retired. By that, what do we actually mean is from the point of you getting a customer service support for your full entire ecosystem with all the bugs, enhancements readily available, and 2016 below, definitely that is not the case. And also, it's a combination of you getting a customer support services for severity 1, severity 2 issues, any patches that are available, to a limited support, and probably it's just not even limited support. You might not get any support for that matter if you're on a retired version. So when you're choosing an ERP roadmap, it's very important for you to understand the current versions and the year in which a particular ERP would be retired. And also, if you look at the adaptive ERP, it's the same, right? So we are looking at a 2022 version of QAD ERP, which is getting retired in March 2024. We've also tried to depict the QAD enterprise platform. This is the core engine on the base on which your ERP runs. Earlier, it was enterprise application, and there's lots more of innovation and kind of extension to third-party. A lot of standard APIs that has been built in as part of the enterprise platform, which runs the engine of the core ERP. Coming back and probably talking in more details about what are the drivers for an upgrade. So these are the areas that, based on the discussion and the different marketing, kind of way forward that the team kind of used to gather all this information. So based on the market leaders, these were the 4 buckets of drivers that kind of enhances our customer towards going for an upgrade. So the business change, process change, IT related, and new software is probably the base reasons why I would, or any of the customers who are due to going towards their digital transformation journey or their modernization journey, these are the core drivers that kind of lead them to even decide of going through an upgrade, right? So if I talk about business changes, so there might be an acquisition, change in the type of business, there's a core model need. I have an ecosystem which has a mix and match of different ERPs, but there's a need of standardization, which also comes under the process changes. There's a need of cloud migration, standardizations, cost reduction. There's a new module and a new functionality and localization need that I need to kind of adapt. So these are the drivers that I would also consider if I'm an ecosystem and I want to go for an upgrade. In addition to this, as we looked at the QAD ERP lifecycle, right? So QAD version until 2016 is fully archived by QAD and it is unsupported. Stability of the older versions, hardware and software is at a long-term risk as well, and fewer support options do exist, and it eventually puts your business at risk as well. There is a high maintenance cost of the multi-applications and multi-databases, and that's what comes under the IT related drivers that kind of encourages me to go for an upgrade. Manufacturing optimization challenges, time-consuming financial reporting consolidations and usage of multiple systems for reporting. As QAD does not support any versions below 2016. So definitely there is no investment in any development on R&D when it comes to those kind of versions. Also, additional modules cannot be integrated to the current versions. New functionality, software, and add-ons, are only being developed for the higher versions of Enterprise Edition and the adaptive ERP integrations, right? So these are the core drivers which kind of encourages me to go for an upgrade. Benefits of upgrading. Now, when I have looked at the QAD ERP lifecycle, I know when this particular version of QAD would retire. I know what are the business drivers or what are the drivers that would encourage me to go for an upgrade. And then comes the benefits of upgrading, right? So definitely taking advantage of new functionality, reduction of the customizations, operational costs, respond to globalization and consolidation needs. There's a benefit that will increase the user productivity. We will definitely see in the later slides why we are making such kind of a statement. We are also getting the benefit of ensuring that we are compliant with all of these certifications and the global standards, whether it is financial standards, whether it is infrastructure standards, and the manufacturing standards. So everything is kind of revolves around the benefits of upgrading. And also, last but not the least, being an adaptive enterprise. So I would definitely emphasize a little more on what an adaptive enterprise is. But before that, it is important for me when I have have all the drivers, have all the benefits. then the other question comes in whether on-prem or cloud, and whether cloud, whether it is QAD cloud or private cloud. Right. So on-prem has its own advantages, but definitely when you're looking for a digitization and you're looking for a modernization roadmap, on-prem is definitely not the way forward. The way forward is cloud. And I'm going to emphasize here more on QAD cloud because we have done some extensive analysis on the benefits that you can get out of the QAD cloud. But QAD cloud, in addition to that, right, so there has been a lot of discussions that has happened between QAD and the customers, and there was always a need of giving options. QAD was not certifying a non-private cloud to go for an upgrade, but now they have publicly announced that AWS is the compatible and the certified non-QAD cloud ecosystem that you can get yourself upgraded on. So definitely from a cloud perspective, cloud ERP or cloud-based ERP, they have become popular in the manufacturing industry, right? Because of the reasons and the bullet points that you see on the slide. So when you go for a cloud for your ERP, and when you go for a QAD cloud as well, you can minimize your upfront costs, you can minimize your infrastructure cost, you can streamline or take this as an benefit to streamline your manufacturing processes. In addition to that, you get the data protection. There's an improvement in the supply chain because you get a faster ROI out of you getting onto the cloud. There's a lower risk. You have all the best practices. You have all the certifications required from a compliance perspective. It's a more secured and a robust ecosystem. And definitely you have a better business continuity when you go for a cloud for that matter. Adaptive ERP, right? So now, as you have seen the QAD ERP lifecycle, you have seen the benefits of an upgrade, you have seen why, what are the challenges and what are the drivers of the upgrades and the differences between on-prem and cloud. So now comes the adaptive ERP, right? So we'll spend some time in understanding what an adaptive ERP, right? So before that, and from a manufacturing perspective, manufacturing nowadays is more complex than ever, right? Because of the need to adapt quickly to changes in supply, demand, business conditions, and customer changes and product customizations, right? So, you add in the business practices, language needs, and custom documentation. So managing a global supply chain can be one of the most challenges, any company will ever have to deal with, right? That's why companies who truly understand their business knows they need an adaptive. And by that, going to a cloud-based ERP solution, it is very important to know what adaptive is, right? So adaptive is how well I can adapt my ERP to the changes, in the existing ecosystem. A classic example for that is a couple of months back, we know there was a semiconductor supply chain issue. And, the older versions of QAD, they're definitely not adaptive enough to understand what's happening on the shop floor, does not get a more deep dive insights on what's happening in the shop floor, how my production is happening, whether I have the required raw materials, by the way my production happens, by the way my demand and supply happens. Do I have enough raw material to even, manufacture the product that I'm responsible for and give it to my suppliers? But adaptive ERP kind of gives you a more deep dive insights and more artificial intelligence and, taking consideration in all of the data points and logical data points, and give you a better insight that, hey, you know what, you have 8 months of raw material by the way your production is happening. And also if you consider the peak demands, you are good with it. So that's why a need of adaptive ERP is, and QAD adaptive ERP, gives you the very solution that you need to cater to the complex manufacturing process changes and the the demands that the suppliers are wanting at this point of time. So adaptive ERP, it is in confirmation, and especially on cloud, it is confirmation to the international finance revenue standards. It is compatible and compliant with automotive industry process. You can have a single database, right? So earlier in the older versions, there was a need to have multiple databases. The governance becomes difficult. and definitely there is an added cost to that. But in cloud ERP solution, you can have a single database. There is an Active Directory support as well. There's an inbuilt tools, easy UI design. They have a big business intelligence and a dashboard and a reporting capability. And there's EOB process maps as well. And last but not the least, there are 100 plus action centers, display metrics, and KPIs where you can track your real-time KPIs. So these are just a high-level overview. Definitely there are more detailed insights to what an adaptive ERP is capable of. These are just high-level bullet points. So definitely based on your current challenges, you can map out the functional capabilities of the adaptive ERP as well. And then you can get a more detailed and a deep dive insights on what it is. Now, the biggest driver in you deciding for an implementation, upgrade, or a migration roadmap is the assessment, right? So definitely the assessment is broken down into three buckets. One is the business structure, process changes, and data. So before even I decide the roadmap, it's very important for me to understand the few criteria based on the significance of your ecosystem and based on the complexity of the business needs. So that's how we weigh down and kind of create an inventory of questionnaires, get an understanding of your existing ecosystem around what kind of a database strategy you have. Does the current database domain structure map to target database domain structure? Data well harmonized across current instance? Do you have a centralized function? Do you want adaptive UX capabilities for all? So now these are just the high-level bullet points that we have carved down. The assessment and the discovery phase for me to even determine the roadmap is more extensive than this. Definitely, we cannot cover all of that, but what we have tried to do is cover at least all the important bullet points across these umbrellas. So when we talk about process change, it's very important for us to understand if you plan to implement any new modules. Do you plan to change any current operational processes? Do you plan to use enterprise edition financial improvements or replicate your current financial processes? Do you have any customization? Do you have any interfaces to and from other softwares or third-party understanding? So, and from a data perspective, is there a specific need to have historical data in the operational database? Now, it is very important for me to devise a data migration strategy and a data archiving strategy. And this question becomes very important for me to determine that. Whether you have a data warehouse, is it possible to have it in a separate database? Is the current data integrity low? Is the current data structure mapped to the target data structure? Do you need any clean data as part of the project? So all of these are very important and critical points when I have to do a data migration assessment. Your key requirements also from a significance and complexity. We do a deep dive understanding from high to low and from the significant changes and the complex changes that you have. So if I have to give a current rundown of it, current version, age of database, data requirement, restructuring requirement, customization interfaces, integrations, reporting requirement, multi-domain localization, bank drivers. These are the significant information that we would gather from the client's ecosystem, and I would define the way forward, create my project plan on the basis of that, create the roadmap, whether it is going to be an alignment upgrade, whether it is going to be a conversion, how I will do the data migration strategy, how I will have an archiving strategy is what will define from understanding the significance requirement. From the complexity, also the timeline of my project will definitely depend, and the complexity of the project, whether it's an upgrade implementation or a migration, will depend on these complex requirements as well. So the quantity, quality, and accuracy, the historical data required, data cleansing required. So now when I'm doing a QAD upgrade from a QAD to non-QAD or QAD to a higher version, it's very important for me to understand the mapping between two schemas, and accordingly, I will have to cleanse the data. So this becomes a very important and a critical role, and especially in a non-QAD ERP. And I would be wrong in saying that it's complex only for non-QAD. It's complex between older versions and the newer versions as well. So restructuring, so process improvement, new functionality, all of this is very critical for me to carve out a roadmap. Again, bank drivers, multi-domain localization, these are from the significant requirement that I've gathered. I would kind of rate them out on the basis of from a high to low level as well. That's very important and key. This is the adaptive ERP significance per se, right? So it's very important for me to understand what I can do as part of phase 1 and phase 2. So usually as part of the best practices, we kind of try to bring in all the as-is functionality into and bucket it as part of the phase 1. Any optimization that I would need to do, I would bucket it as part of the phase 2. So just as a classic example, say if I have a milk run customizations, right? So if I can have it as part of the standard milk run capabilities, I will have it as part of phase 1. But if I cannot do that, I would take that as part of phase 2. So here we have tried to segregate everything from the functional area, from a base, from a purchasing, manufacturing, financials, report, analytics, EM, SSM integrations, and EDI. We have tried to, two of the best abilities, and based on our understanding and based on the discussions we have had with QAD as well on this. So we have segregated all of these modules which can easily go as part of phase 1 and what we can take as part of phase 2, so that we provide a rapid upgrade and not spend much time in optimizing as part of phase 1, whereas I can go live with my phase 1 and later on, once I'm live, I can, without any disruption to my production, I can work on the phase 2 areas. It is very important for me to, or all of us to understand the different methodologies that we have, right? So effective onboarding is the way forward, and earlier it was very much limited to QAD, but then they released it out to everybody and made it public. Definitely the key is to get yourself trained and certified in effective onboarding. But you get access to all of the predefined templates. If you want to have a rapid and a cost-effective upgrade, I would encourage everybody to get yourself trained and certified in effective onboarding so that you get access to all of the tools. But specifically talking about the implementation methodology, so the 4 important phases is the planning, design and configure, test and accept, deploy and evolve. So if you want to be successful in your project, you have to understand the project. You have to do the project planning correctly, and it is eventually ties up to your requirement understanding, the way you would do the assessment roadmap, the way you would discover the ecosystem, the way you will understand the significance of the ecosystem, and the way you would carve out on the basis of complexity is what will define your project. And all of these are pretty much templatized, and you just have to tweak it on the basis of your ecosystem, right? So when you talk about the design and configure, so design workshop, very important. Project team training is very important, and by project team training, also technical team training is also very important. Data load workshop is very important, and definitely data loading part is also very important. I will let you know what the significance is, but it's very important to understand this important phase, test and accept. How many CRPs you would want to have, whether you want to do 1 CRP, 2 CRPs, integration testing, what are the automation available as part of the test and accept, what IPs and accelerators you can bring in is very important, for this phase. And definitely the cutover planning and the end user training do emphasize a lot on the end user training, because when you are, when you're an end user working on an older versions, there are a lot of menu changes, a lot of functional changes, and if they're not aware of how to maneuver around the menus, how to use the keys, you will have a big hit on your UAT, you will have a big hit on your CRP, you will have a big hit on the deploy and the cutover. You will also have a big hit on your post go live. So because we have seen that there are many user prone errors that kind of gets kicked in because of some invalid data entry, and just because they are not used to the screens and they have used. You have to understand one thing. As an end user, they have used it for 15-20 years, and it's a big change for them. So you need to emphasize and invest more time on that. By the virtue of me doing the assessment discovery, I do the requirement gathering, significance understanding, complexity understanding. Now, on the basis of that, I will then define the approach, whether I want to go for an alignment upgrade or whether I want to do a conversion. So based on the complexity, based on the significant requirement, if the customer comes and says that, hey, you know what, I need to have my entire historical data. So there's no other methodology to use other than you use the conversion upgrades, where you do the pre-conversion setups, you do the conversions, you do the post-conversion setups, you do the post-conversion validation. Rest, all of the phases remains the same. You have the planning, you have the configuration and design phase, then you have the test and accept and deploy and evolve. Everything remains the same, but the core crux of conversion, pre-conversion, post, and the validation remains different. Alignment upgrade, now again, the way it differs from conversion is I would not want to bring over the entire history. I can define an archive strategy, whether I use the current production during the cutover, use that as an archive environment, or I can convert that into a SQL, run some BI analytics thought process, move it on a data lake, and then run reports or historical reports on that. Definitely for the first 1 year, I would want that mechanism, because I would need to have history to compare reports. So either of that I can devise, but the master data setups and the delta master data loads, the dynamic and this data static data loading is what kind of differentiates that, and the trial balances and the opening balances what kind of differentiates an alignment upgrade from the conversion. So it's very important for you to correctly define that on the basis of your discovery if you want to have a rapid and an effective upgrade method or implementation or migration for that matter. Tools and templates. Now, if you have gone through the effective onboarding process, and again, I'm emphasizing on that, you have to ensure that you have trained and certified on effective onboarding, because you get access to all of the tools and templates. QAD has spent a number of years and based on their expertise and experience, they have templatized all of the different phases from a project kickoff, from a business process workshop, from a domain workshop, from a project planning perspective, whether it's an alignment upgrade, conversion upgrade, any of the module implementation, test scripts, they all have predefined, templates for that. So it is very important. Until unless you're not trained and certified, you don't get access to that. Without that, it's very difficult to have a faster and a cost-effective upgrade. Now, in addition to this, definitely those templates have to be tweaked, because they are not 100% ready, but at least it gets you to a point where you can utilize them and ensure that you save out on a lot of time, and just tweak it on the basis of your needs. And there's also certain toolkits and tool sets that are available as part of the effective onboarding process. And we, as an organization, we as global system integrators, having an innovation lab, we have also kind of created certain IPs and accelerators. We talk about the data extraction tool. You talk about the test automation. So we have seen that CRPs and UAT and integration test, it's very time consuming. And what we have done is we have taken the test scripts of whatever we have as part of the effective onboarding process, and definitely it would differ on the basis of the different versions of QAD. But it's a one-time, creation of bots. I would create it one time based on my versions, and I can define all of the data points as an end user that I would use in a particular menu, and the expected output from those inputs of the data. I can define that in bots, and I can save out on a lot of time. So that is an IP and accelerator that, as part of an innovation lab, we have developed to cut down from the timelines. And we do see that if your CRP and UAT and the testing, if it runs for 3 months or so, you can actually negate it down and lower it down to probably 3 weeks or 1 month. And definitely, the conversion toolkit is already there as part of the your application builder. You can leverage that, but definitely there's a lot of pre-conversions and post-conversion steps that I have to do manually. But I can leverage that tool to do the conversion if I want to have one historical data in my ecosystem. But you have to remember one thing, that if you go for a conversion upgrade, you have to definitely be prepared with a longer timeline. And that's absolutely not a recommended way as well. There are a lot of ways you can archive your data. go for an alignment upgrade, bring in your trial balances and opening balances, and have a clean start, have a fresh start on your new ecosystem. Training and training investment. This is the most important and a critical phase as well. What we have seen is based on our discussion with the IT leaders. There's a lot of less emphasis and less time that is spent on the trainings. But the more emphasis is gone in project planning and the resourcing and actual execution of the project. But then later on, there is an emphasis that is put in the training. But as part of the effective onboarding process and as part of the different variables and inputs that we have gotten from the market leaders, and by the market leaders, I'm talking about the CIO, and CEO, and the CTO level. So they have emphasized on this, and we have kind of correlated it with what is readily available. And it's clearly evident that as part of the effective onboarding process also, QAD kind of emphasizes on the project team training. So do give detailed time for the project team training. Now, when we talk about the project team training, it definitely evolves around and involves the effective onboarding processes, all the tools, templates that is available for the different phases, the domain workshop and the business process blueprinting. So all of that needs to be properly defined, and ensure that you give adequate time to the project team, whether it's the customer or the partner or the QAD team who is going to be involved in it. But we need to ensure that there's a mix and match of hands-on and materials that are available as part of the effective onboarding training. We have to ensure that everybody who's involved on this has gone through this training. Technical team training, it is also kind of concentrated on the QAD consultants and the partners who are involved in the upgrade, implementation, or migration strategy, the customer project team and the customer IT personnel. So it's very important as part of the technical team training to be aware of how the WebUI works, how NetUI works, the system administration around these, the basics of progress, basic of your application builder. That's the way earlier to 2016 Enterprise Edition, you had the QDT, which was the QAD deployment toolkit, and everything used to happen with that. But then on the higher version, you have your application builder. And it's very important for me to get trained on it. The certification also available. JK Tech has certified YAP consultants and QAD Cloud technical onboarding consultants as well. QXtend is the integration protocol that is used between QAD and QAD when you want to talk and data transfer between these two platforms. And also the bolt-on accelerator that comes in. There's also Dell Boomi, but that's not mandatory. But you can also get yourself familiarized with that, because as part of your modernization and implementation journey, it's very important for me to be understanding of this. Domain workshop, the concentration of this, please ensure that your financial and operational consultants are well aware of the domain workshop, and the domain design and the coding strategy that goes in discussing and defining the company structures and requirement to develop these strategies. It is extremely important when you have a multi-site projects to ensure a standardized approach is in place prior to the start of the business process workshop. So domain workshop is the first phase, and then the business process workshop starts. But it gives you a more and a detailed insights on and a better preparedness to go and be better prepared to the business process, where you would do the deep diving of current business processes. You'll do the process discovery. You'll do the customization you'll study the entire customization and the third-party applications involved, and then kind of carve out a future state and what kind of customization stays, what kind of customization goes, what is the functionality available, which is a part of your customization, but a standard functionality in your latest and greatest version of QAD. So all that will be a part of the business process workshop and the blueprinting exercise. But the key decisions, domain design, standardization of data, convention strategy, operational structure, printed document policy is what will be a part of this domain workshop. Business process workshop, I already touched base, where you will go through the understanding of your current entire ecosystem, QAD, modules, add-on modules, third-party applications, customizations, integrations, EDI, data warehousing, automation solution needs, blueprinting, current as is and future state is what you will define here. Last but not the least, data migration, guys. Now again, whether you're doing an alignment upgrade or a conversion upgrade, your data migration plays an important role. And the way you would define the master data setups, the way you'll define the dynamic and the static data loading, and the way you'll define the archiving methodology, it is very important to understand the data migration, the tools and accelerators that is available, at what point of time you will cut on or cut off your current data, and how you would plan on getting your incremental master data setups, how you'll plan on getting the trial balances in, how you'll plan on getting the opening balances in, how you'll plan on stopping in the current production so that no data entry happens there. So all of that is a part of the data migration methodology. You have to ensure that this is properly structured, properly defined. Some high-level guidelines from a data loading. You always have to test your data loading during your test and acceptance phase. Both of your masters and dynamic data loading, I have emphasized this earlier as well, but it's very important to do it in test. Don't directly go it in production. We can be, confident, but we cannot be overconfident with the data, because if you do it in the non-production, you're very much aware how you can define the load sequence, how you can carefully avoid the errors based on the different, kind of sequencing you follow, the different errors that you get at the different phases. You have to ensure that the load files are in correct format. You can use accelerator and Excel integration to do the loads. You definitely have to, split the data loads into multiple segments. Plan for data load failures, record all the timings in non-production so that you can plan or cut over properly. Consider splitting your data, which especially large data, into chunks. Use multiple accelerators instances so that you can expedite your data loading process. So these are just the general guidelines. There are a lot of details that you can go through. Definitely we can have some follow-up discussions if you want to go at the nuts and bolts level. But definitely the core crux of this webinar was to give a dump of the output of the discussion and the research that came out with the analysis from the marketing team based on the discussions they had with the IT leaders, and understanding your current QAD ERP life cycle, the drivers that would kind of move me towards getting an upgrade, the benefits of upgrades by the virtue of me doing all of this, what kind of infrastructure makes more sense for my ecosystem, whether I want to go on cloud, whether I want to go on for a private cloud, whether I want to go on a QAD cloud, is something that I need to define correctly. Now, the significance around my assessment roadmap, the complexity around my requirement roadmap, and the different methodologies that I need to define, planning out all the phases, understanding the effective onboarding process, utilizing all of the tools and templates that are available to make my journey successful, and ensure that proper time is given on the training for the project team and the technical team, and definitely properly planning the domain workshop before the business process workshop, utilize and include a project team which has the capabilities across all of the modules, add-on modules, EDIs, maps transformation, automation solution, developers. So definitely need a core team who understands this, understands the requirement correctly, and properly defining the data migration strategy. If you definitely do this, for sure you can get into a roadmap where you can do a faster and a cost-effective implementation, upgrade, or migration. And definitely we can have some follow-up discussions. If you want to go and do a deep dive at the nuts and bolts level, we'll definitely have some follow-up sessions to do that. So with this, thank you everybody to connect and utilize your production hours for this webinar. I hope you take away with certain information that will be effective, and you can better plan, create a roadmap, and hey, did I forget to mention, do you have the right implementation, upgrade, or migration partner? Think about it. All right, so JK Tech, we have already given you an overview. You can reach out to marketing@jktech.com if you want to have some follow-up discussion. Let's discuss it at the nuts and bolts level. We'll guide you to the right path. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sunil, for an informative presentation. Now, if the audience have any questions, please share them in the chat and I will read them out to Sunil and he can answer them for you. We have one question, Sunil. Is it mandatory to upgrade QAD ERP when considering upgrade of the operating system?
Okay. Now, appreciate that question. That's probably an important question. And see, there's no simple answer to that. But based on the expertise and the experience that we have in the QAD domain, I would definitely say that yes, you can upgrade your operating system and you don't have a mandatory need of upgrading your QAD ERP. Now, to further substantiate that, I would definitely want to call out certain things that you definitely need to do a compatibility check between your QAD ERPs and the operating system that you want to get yourself upgraded on. You definitely have to do a compatibility check with not with the QAD, but all the integrations, add-on modules that you have in your ERP system. You have to ensure that at least that level of compatibility is there, and it's not dependent on the older versions of QAD. Say if you're on EB2 version and you're on a Red Hat 5, you want to get yourself upgraded to Red Hat 8. My answer is yes, you can upgrade your operating system. Though QAD does not have that much time to run through each and every version, each and every modules, and test it out as part of their R&D roadmap. So they have definitely done that for fewer versions, but not for all. But based on our experience, you can definitely upgrade your operating system to a higher version and not upgrade your QAD. But yes, there's a thin line between that. We can have some further discussions, but if you want to go with my word, you can upgrade your operating system and not upgrade your QAD. However, that will defeat the purpose of you getting into an adaptive roadmap, adaptive strategy, or digitization roadmap. I would definitely say that consider your QAD ecosystem upgrade as well if you're planning to have an operating system upgrade because of any patching limitations that you would have. It opens up for vulnerability. Your older versions, definitely you need to upgrade your OS, but your QAD ecosystem also you need to think of upgrading as well.
Thank you, Sunil. We have a few more questions. Can you give me a typical timeline of QAD ERP upgrade to the latest version? What's the approximate cost involved?
Now, see, this from a high-level perspective, yes, I can definitely give you that. But there's a lot of objects that goes in before even I can say that this is what the timeline would be and this is what your commercials would be. But from a high-level timeline, if you have a small ecosystem, and by that I'm talking about, say, if you are on an older version, you have finance, you have AP, AR, GL. If you have distribution, if you have manufacturing, and if you have certain localization, if you are on one site, anywhere from 2 months to 3 months timeline is what you're looking at. And a high-level budgetary ballpark number for that would be anywhere between $50,000 to $60,000. Now, again, that's a simple ecosystem, but you need to add in the level of customizations, how many customizations you have, what are the integrations, what are the bank drivers, what is EDI, the base package in your EDI, the maps transformation, the third-party applications, right, automation solution, label customization. So all of that absolutely goes in when you want to define a timeline for your ecosystem. But anywhere between 2 to 3 months to 6 months, 6 to 7 months is what you're looking at from a simple to a complex ecosystem. And from $60,000 to $500,000 is what, kind of the approximate budget is, if you ask me. And definitely we can go much more in the details and at the nuts and bolts level. Process discovery is definitely required to have a definite timeline and ballpark. But to summarize that, $50,000 to $500,000, and from a small ecosystem to a highly complex ecosystem, and 2 months to 6 to 7 months is what we are looking at.
Thank you, Sunil. We have one more question. In fact, two more questions. Is it mandatory to opt for QAD Cloud when choosing to upgrade to QAD Adaptive ERP?
Okay. Now, that's a very good question as well. And I kind of covered that also during my presentation. Earlier, definitely it was mandatory when we spoke about going into an adaptive ERP platform, and it was definitely bolted on and tied up with QAD Cloud. But based on the different market segments and based on the different needs, QAD has opened it up to a QAD Cloud as well, and Amazon Web Service is the certified platform, which you can definitely adapt and certified by QAD as well as part of your cloud ecosystem roadmap. Definitely, by that, I'm not saying that you cannot go on Azure or GCP for that matter, but that's not certified. So I would strongly recommend that we go with a certified roadmap and a solution provided by QAD, and QAD Cloud and AWS is my answer.
Thank you, Sunil.
Since we do have a question, I think.
Yeah, we do have one more question.
Okay.
Do you really need to worry about OS when we get into cloud? QAD themselves provide suggestions on the OS. Am I right?
Yes, that is right. QAD definitely provides you with the suggestions on the operating system. Now, definitely, when you're going on a QAD cloud solution, they definitely take due consideration of the compatibility checks and the current ecosystem that you are on, the current QAD you're on, the current QAD interfaces you're on, the current QAD add-on modules that you're on, and the adaptive ERP operating system. What would be the latest and greatest, which is highly patched, has the security and compliance, has less vulnerability to hacks. So yes, QAD provides the operating system flavor recommendation, and they go with the latest and greatest, to be honest. And the same will go when you would choose a non-QAD cloud as well. So even if you want to choose AWS, that's going to be the latest and greatest, and because definitely that's where the adaptive ERP would also work.
Thank you, Sunil. If there are any more questions, just reach out to us directly. We'll respond. Rather, Sunil will directly respond to you through mail. I think we have come to the end of the webinar. I thank each one of you for participating in this webinar. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll connect soon for more details, more in the nuts and bolts level. Thank you all.